All right, today we're putting on our digital detective hats. We are going to break down a real cyber attack piece by piece using only the digital breadcrumbs the intruder left behind in the log files. So let's jump right in and see exactly how they pulled it off.
This is really the big question in cybersecurity, isn't it? An attacker gets into a system, moves around silently, and then tries to disappear without a trace. So how do you actually catch an intruder you can't even see? A digital ghost who could be literally anywhere in the world?
Well, the answer sounds simple, but actually doing it, that's the tricky part. Every single click, every command, every failed login attempt, it all creates data. It's a digital breadcrumb. For an investigator, this isn't just a bunch of noise. It's a trail of evidence. See, even a ghost leaves footprints.
So our story here doesn't start with some big, loud alarm. Nope, it begins with just a single, quiet alert. An analyst gets the job of figuring out what happened. You can think of the server as the crime scene, and the log files, they're the only witnesses.
Okay, so every good detective needs their toolkit, and the digital world is no different. In this case, our analyst Carlos Luis Maturano Gonzalez is using Splunk, which is this incredibly powerful tool for digging through millions, and I mean millions of log entries. He's focused on two key sources: the Apache web server logs, which show all the website traffic, and the Linux authentication logs, which track every single login attempt. And here's the kicker. He's already got a prime suspect. This IP address right here, 192.168.178.83.
All right, so the first thing you always have to figure out in an investigation like this is, how did they get in? How did the bad guy get their foot in the door in the first place? This is where the real detective work kicks off, sifting through all that evidence to find that one initial moment of breach.
This is the one question that's driving our analyst. It's not just who got in, but how. Was it a simple weak password? Did someone click on a phishing email? Or was it something more technical? He's pretty sure the Apache logs have the answer.
And wow, this attacker was super methodical. They found a potential weakness in a file's web address, what's called a local file inclusion vulnerability, or LFI. Then, using a tool called FUF, they just hammered the server with hundreds of automated guesses. This technique is called fuzzing. Basically, it's like rattling 1,000 doorknobs at once, hoping one is unlocked. And eventually, one was. They found a way to peek at files they had no business seeing.
And what did that get them? Access to 97 different system files. Think about that. That's 97 chances for the attacker to find one little piece of information that could blow the whole system wide open.
And right here, this is the smoking gun. This single line from the Apache access log is the undeniable proof. The attacker specifically asks for a file called etc/password, and the server comes back with a 200 status code. In web speak, that's a big, sure, here you go. The door wasn't just unlocked, it was wide open.
So you might be asking, what's the big deal with this /etc password file? Well, here's the thing. It doesn't have passwords in it anymore, not on modern systems. But what it does have is a list of every single valid user account. And bingo, buried in that list, the attacker found exactly what they were looking for, the username IronHack.
Okay, so now the attacker has a valid username. That's a huge clue. But a clue isn't enough. They need the key. They need the password. And that kicks off the next part of this whole attack.
So what do they do next? A full-on brute force attack. They just hammered the server's remote login service, known as SSH, with password attempts. Just look at this chart. They threw 195 failed attempts at the server. It's just a relentless automated storm of guesses, trying password after password for that IronHack username. But you know, it only has to work once.
So for our analyst, the investigation pivots. He's now digging deep into the authentication logs. For what probably felt like forever, the logs would have just shown this: failed password, failed password, failed password. And then, after 195 lines that all look the same, he sees it. One line that's different: accepted password. It's just one word, but that one word changes absolutely everything. And just like that, they're in. The brute force attack worked. The attacker has full access now. The system logs this new connection with a specific process ID, or PID, 51362. And this PID is now the new breadcrumb for our analyst to follow. He can track every single thing the attacker does from here on out. So now that both parts of the attack have been uncovered, our analyst can finally put all the pieces of the puzzle together.
He can reconstruct the entire story from that very first probe to the final breach and create a complete timeline of exactly what happened.
So let's walk through the entire chain of events, from start to finish. It began with reconnaissance, using that FFF tool. That led them to exploit the LFI vulnerability, which let them harvest a critical piece of info, the username Ironhack. With that name, they launched the brute force attack. And after 195 failures, they got in, starting a new session. Every single step, all laid out, all thanks to the digital footprints they left in the logs.
So, case closed, right? Well, yes and no. Figuring out what happened is great, but it's only half the battle. The really important part is understanding why it matters and what we can learn so it doesn't happen again.
You know, a case like this really shows you the incredible skill that's involved. We're talking about running complex Splunk queries to find a needle in a haystack of logs, being able to recognize the telltale signs of an LFI attack, and then connecting the dots between totally different log files from the web server and the authentication system to build that final timeline. It's this perfect mix of deep technical know-how and classic detective work.
So the million-dollar question, how could this have been stopped? Well, a key defense is something called an intrusion prevention system, or an IPS. Just think of it like a really smart security guard standing at the gate to your network. It would have seen the insane number of rapid-fire tests from the fuzzing tool, or that relentless brute force attack, and just blocked the attacker's IP address on the spot. End of story.
And that really leaves us with one final, kind of chilling thought. This digital break-in was caught. It was analyzed. All because a skilled investigator knew what to look for and where to look. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? How many other digital ghosts are out there right now, silently moving through systems, leaving their footprints behind in the logs, just waiting to be found?